"You're just bitter," he said. I smiled, set my drink down, and looked out at the ocean rolling quiet under that Florida morning sun. Bitterness, huh? It bought me this beachfront kitchen, these quartz countertops, this peace. My name is Monique Whitfield. I'm 48 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that silence can be louder than revenge. He didn't start out like that. None of them do. When I met Trey, he had that easy charm, like he'd rehearsed it but somehow made it sound new every time. His smile could smooth over traffic noise. His voice had a little rasp that made ordinary words sound like promises. He smelled like sandalwood and ambition. He ran this small event planning company out in Pensacola, said he specialized in luxury vibes for grown folks. I didn't know what that meant, but I found out soon enough. He threw yacht parties at sunset, rented rooftop bars, staged anniversary dinners with fairy lights and champagne towers. Folks loved him because he made chaos look classy. I met him at a Juneteenth block party downtown. Heat shimmering off the asphalt, grills smoking on every corner, kids running through sprinklers somebody rigged from a hose. I was working the table for my cousin's catering business, Good Trouble Kitchen. Our oxtail sliders were the talk of the event. Trey came back 3 times, each time with that grin that said he was half flirting, half networking. The 3rd time, he leaned across the foil pan, took one slider, and said, "You look like a woman who pays attention to details." Lord, if only he knew how right he was. Back then, I was the queen of behind the scenes. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. I knew every invoice, every number, every permit deadline. QuickBooks was my love language. I was the one people called when something went wrong because they knew I'd make it right, quietly without a fuss. Trey said he loved that about me, said I made him feel safe. But men like Trey don't really want safety. They want applause. At first, it was sweet. He'd drop by the kitchen with coffee, brag about new clients, tell me, "We a power couple now, baby." I'd smile, half proud, half cautious, because I knew how fast "we" can turn into me. It started small, little comments that slid under the skin like splinters. "You work too much. You don't gotta triple check everything. Relax, baby, let me handle it." So I did. I let him manage the meetings. I let him move money for quick vendor payments. I told myself it was trust, not neglect. The first time my stomach knotted was when I saw a $900 charge at a boutique I didn't recognize. He said it was decor stuff for an event. I believed him, wanted to believe him. Then came her, a new business partner named Shalyn. Young, soft-spoken, always tagging him on Instagram. Backless sundresses in February. Captions like, "Boss man making moves." I scrolled through those posts in silence. I didn't confront him that night, or the next, because part of me already knew, once you start demanding truth, you can't unhear it. So I waited. I watched, and I collected. When I say receipts, I don't mean the poetic kind. I mean actual folders, dates, Venmo screenshots, vendor slips with her signature in delicate cursive. I labeled everything. July, Shalyn deposit. August, Uncle Joe's bar tab. September, wire 7,200. I moved quiet because I'd learned something most women don't get taught. Patience is a weapon when wielded right. The slap, the one that woke me up, came the day I asked about that missing $7,200. It was a Saturday. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and fried catfish. The blinds were half open, sunlight slicing across his face. I held the receipt in my hand like proof of faith gone bad. "Trey, what's this transfer? This account don't even exist." He didn't even look nervous, just sighed, shook his head slow. "You watching me like I'm the enemy?" he said. "You know what your problem is? You always think somebody out to get you. You bitter, Monique." Then he turned the TV back up. Some rerun of Martin laughing loud enough to drown me out. I stood there barefoot on the tile, holding that paper and my pride. Something inside me went still, not broken, just still. That night, I stopped cooking. No more catfish Fridays, no Sunday breakfast, no updates about invoices. Silence became my new spice. He thought it was a phase, thought I was pouting. He'd crack jokes, invite me to his events, act like we were fine. But the air between us had changed. I was already packing in my spirit. I started untangling myself one thread at a time, like loosening a braid too tight, rerouted my direct deposit, opened a P.O. box, cleared my credit cards, called my Aunt Denise down in Port Orange. "You still got that guest room?" I asked. She didn't even hesitate. "Baby, it's been waiting. Bring your piece with you." It took me 2 months to leave, not because I was scared, because I was strategic. I made sure my name was off the business first. He thought I was just too tired to deal with it. Fine. Let him think that. I printed every bank statement, photographed receipts, even snapped a picture of a napkin where he'd scribbled, "Buy out 90K. Ask Shay." He never saw me watching, never realized I was documenting our undoing. When I left, it was quiet. No shouting, no goodbye speech. I packed one suitcase, wiped down the counters, and sent one text. "Keys in the drawer. Don't call me unless it's legal." Then I drove south with the windows down and gospel humming through static. Aunt Denise's house sat 3 blocks from the beach, a butter-yellow bungalow with wind chimes that sounded like laughter in the breeze. Every morning the air smelled like salt, sunscreen, and someone frying bacon 2 doors down. For the first time in years, my thoughts came in full sentences. Again. No interruptions, no half-truths, just me, my breath, and the ocean whispering that I was still alive. One morning I started making candles. It began like therapy, melting shea wax in an old saucepan, mixing eucalyptus and sea salt oil, pouring into glass jars from Dollar Tree. Watching liquid turn solid felt like watching myself heal. Aunt Denise saw them lined up on the counter and said, "Baby, you could sell these." I laughed. "Who buying therapy in a jar?" Turns out, everybody. At her church's women's ministry brunch, she set a few out next to the banana pudding. They sold out before I sat down. That was the day I realized my silence had value. I went home, made more. Sage, lemon verbena, magnolia blossom. I called the line salt and sage. For everything I'd swallowed and everything I'd burned. Etsy first. $1,000 in 2 weeks. I reinvested every dime, bought a used Cricut, printed labels that read, "Peace is earned. Light it daily." Those candles became my sanctuary, my LLC, my new beginning in glass form. Year 1, small business grant. Year 2, feature in Florida Gulf, women in business. Year 3, hotel partnerships and 2 part-time hires, both single moms rebuilding like me. Every pour, every label, every shipment was a prayer disguised as productivity. When I finally bought my own house, a small 1-story near Ponce Inlet, the realtor handed me the keys and said, "It's quiet here." I smiled. That's the point. Now I wake up to the sound of waves and my own laughter. I cook when I feel like it. I stretch the morning slow, coffee steaming beside the window, candle flickering low. Same woman, new light. People ask if I'm still bitter. I tell them bitterness was just stage 1 of clarity. He called it bitterness. I called it bookkeeping. He called me emotional. I called it discernment. And while he's out there chasing party lights and temporary applause, I'm counting blessings like revenue. Because the truth is, bitterness didn't ruin me. It lit the way. I didn't block his number. Part of me wanted to see if he'd try, if he'd test the silence, if there was still a fraction of decency left in him somewhere under all that ego and smooth talk. But he didn't. "No, I'm sorry. No, let's talk. No, you okay?" Just a silence I didn't fight to fill. It was strange at first, how quiet the phone was. You get used to chaos like it's company. The pings, the arguments, the dry K messages that still hurt. When it all stopped, the silence sounded like thunder. But after a few weeks, it started to feel like oxygen. So instead of chasing closure, I filled orders, candles, kits. custom blends. I started writing small notes by hand, tiny slips of paper I'd tuck under the lid before sealing each box. For your peace corner. From one survivor to another. Let it burn, then let it go. Women started writing back, DMs, Etsy messages, even little letters. Stories of heartbreak, divorce, burnout, grief. They said my candles helped them breathe again. They didn't know how much their words did the same for me. I realized I wasn't just selling candles. I was shipping truth in glass jars. But people always ask, how did you afford that house? They want the shortcut version, the glossy highlight reel. So here's both answers. The short one, I worked like I had something to prove. The long one, I worked like I had nothing left to lose. My aunt's guest room turned into a studio before either of us admitted it out loud. The bed became a workspace, lined with cardboard boxes, wicks, and mason jars. I hung command hooks for tools, labeled everything. Oils stacked by scent, family, citrus, floral, wood, smoke, towels folded in rows. I kept it spotless because clean spaces make calm minds. The floor always smelled like lavender and ambition. I'd start before sunrise, melting wax in a silver pot while the house was still quiet except for the waves and the hum of the fridge. Aunt Denise would peek in around 8, holding her mug, smiling. "Baby, you gon' burn yourself out before you burn that wax." I'd laugh. "That's the plan, Auntie." My first big break came from a woman named Talia, an Airbnb superhost who ordered a seaside blessing set and left a glowing review with pictures. She tagged me. That one post, 113 orders in 48 hours. My phone was buzzing like it had caught the Holy Ghost. I sat on the floor surrounded by tissue paper and shipping labels, eyes burning from fatigue but grinning like a fool. My knees hurt. My back was screaming. My hands smelled like sage and sea salt. But I was free. Every cent I poured was a little piece of freedom, one wick at a time. Salt and Sage by Monique became Salt and Sage Co. Then it became Salt and Sage Home. I bought a $79 Shopify theme and customized it until it looked like luxury. I bought a small label printer that sounded like music at 2 a.m. Zut, zut, zut. A rhythm of progress. I didn't spend on anything I couldn't justify. No vacations, no new shoes, no dinners out unless they doubled as marketing meetings. I reinvested everything. When I needed new photos, I borrowed my cousin's iPhone and shot flat lays on my aunt's kitchen table, using parchment paper for background. I made mistakes. So many. Like the time I shipped 50 candles before realizing the wicks weren't centered. Every one of them burned sideways. They all got returned. I sat on that floor surrounded by boxes, wanting to cry. But instead, I lit one crooked candle and said out loud, "You can fix this." Then I did. I owned the mistake, refunded the buyers, sent replacements with apology notes and a discount code called Second Chances. Half of them became repeat customers. That's when I learned. Failure can be fertilizer if you don't run from it. By the end of year 2, I'd hit $98,000 in revenue. I didn't celebrate with champagne. I celebrated by buying a new printer. But inside, I exhaled for the first time in years. That's when I walked into Sunbelt Credit Union, nervous but proud, carrying a folder labeled Monique Whitfield Property Goals. I wore my best blazer, hair slicked back, nails clean. I handed over my tax returns, business paperwork, screenshots of my Shopify dashboard. The loan officer, a woman named Ms. Corinne, looked through everything slow and steady. She had silver braids coiled up in a bun and eyes that looked like she'd seen every kind of story. Finally, she looked up and said, "Why you remind me of me when I started out?" I smiled, throat tight. "Maybe because I finally stopped waiting for somebody to see me." She nodded, smiled soft, and approved me on the spot. Now, let me be clear. I didn't buy no mansion. I bought a 2-bedroom bungalow with chipped paint, uneven floors, and sand always sneaking through the cracks in the porch door. But when that back door opened to a private path straight to the beach, and I saw the ocean framed in gold, I knew I was home. That first night, I walked barefoot through every room, holding a single candle like a lantern. I put one in every corner. Lemon verbena in the kitchen, magnolia and musk in the hallway, returned to self by my bedside. The house smelled like starting over. And when I woke up the next morning to gulls outside and sunlight flooding the window above the sink, I whispered, "You did it." I slept better there than I had in years. One Sunday afternoon, I was filling a wholesale order for a spa in Fort Lauderdale, hands coated in wax, gospel music playing low, when my cousin Tasha burst in from the porch like she was bringing breaking news. "Girl," she gasped, "ain't that your ex on Facebook Live?" I didn't even flinch, just kept pouring. She shoved the phone toward me anyway. There he was, Trey, sitting in a busted-up Nissan, driver's seat peeled, voice scratchy, talking into the camera. "Starting from the bottom again," he said, trying to sound motivational. "Some people just can't handle ambition." The comments were full of pity hearts and fake encouragement. I watched just long enough to see the bags under his eyes, the sweat on his forehead, the cheap chain around his neck. Then I turned back to my work. Didn't even blink, because I didn't need to. The truth had already caught up with him. After I left, his whole vision unraveled. The one with the yachts, the luxury vibes, the fake smiles. Shallon disappeared as soon as the money did. The business got audited. The IRS started asking questions. Vendors stopped answering his calls. He defaulted on his payments, lost the warehouse, filed for bankruptcy. Then, because men like him always do, he tried to reinvent himself, helping young entrepreneurs find their path. That was the tagline on his new coaching site. Only problem was his own. Path led straight to a foreclosure notice. Meanwhile, mine led to peace. By then, I had leveled up. I hired a small branding agency out of Atlanta, young black women with style and precision, to handle a full rebrand. New logo, soft touch boxes, custom branded tape, soy wax certification. The first time I saw my candles lined up on retail shelves, Target lighting, polished wood, salt and sage home embossed in gold, I cried. Not the loud kind, the quiet disbelief kind. By year 4, we were in 8 retail locations across the Southeast, and I was just getting started. Then came the call. Unknown number, Pensacola area code. I let it ring. Voicemail. His voice came through my speaker. Older now, thinner, still performing confidence. "Hey, Monique, just checking in. Saw your brands poppin'. We should talk. Maybe collab. You always had a good eye. Hope you're not still bitter or whatever. Anyway, hit me back." I sat there listening, one eyebrow raised, half a smile forming. "Bitter or whatever," he said, like the word had followed him all these years. I didn't delete the voicemail. I saved it. Not out of nostalgia, out of proof. Proof that people will spin the block when they see you shining, forgetting they were the ones who cut your light in the first place. I didn't call back, but I did mail him something. One return to self candle. No note, no message, just a matte black jar filled with sage, eucalyptus, and quiet redemption. Underneath, taped to the bottom, was my business card. Front, salt and sage home, curated piece for every season back. My name, my title, my beachfront address. No apology, no bitterness, just proof of evolution. The next morning, while the coffee percolated and the ocean shimmered silver through my kitchen window, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "So you really did it. Damn." I smiled, looked out at the horizon where the sky met the sea. No response necessary, because silence, when you've earned it, says everything. The first time he showed up near my street, I knew before I saw him. It wasn't a sound, not a sight. Just that uneasy heat behind your ears when your spirit recognizes something it already survived once. That shift in the air, the kind that makes the hair on your arms rise even before your mind catches up. I was taking out the recycling, barefoot in my robe, the ocean wind brushing against my calves, the smell of salt and morning dew tangled in my hair. The sun hadn't fully climbed yet. The world still looked half asleep. That's when I saw it. A silver sedan, 2 houses down. Windows cracked just enough for the bass to thump slow like a heartbeat. Music low, engine idling, just sitting. Didn't knock. Didn't wave. Didn't speak. Just watched. Like I was some rerun he couldn't stop rewatching. I didn't panic. I'd worked too hard for peace to let one ghost shake it. But I felt that old reflex kick in, the one where you pretend you don't notice, even while your body is already memorizing every license plate number, every shape of shadow. That afternoon, I went online and ordered a Ring camera, called it Monique's Do Not Disturb Bell. The next morning, I installed floodlights, the motion sensor kind that snap on like truth, sharp and sudden. I wanted the night to know I wasn't scared of it anymore. Because here's the thing about silence. It isn't just quiet. It's preparation. A few days later, something strange came in the mail. A gold foil envelope, thick cardstock, fancy enough to smell expensive. When I opened it, the letters shimmered in the light. Emerging Entrepreneurs of the Panhandle, Small Business Showcase and Networking Mixer. Location? A newly renovated boutique hotel 20 minutes up the coast. I almost tossed it straight into the recycling bin with the grocery flyers. But something small and electric said, go. Not for him. For her. The version of me who used to bite her tongue until it bled, who sat in rooms full of men taking credit for her spreadsheets, her strategies, her sanity. The woman who got called bitter for asking where the money went. The one who once mixed wax and oil on the floor of her aunt's guest room, praying to make rent while a stray cat named Smokey judged her from the dresser. So I went. That morning, I ironed cream linen pants till the pleats stood sharp. A soft pink blouse, gold hoops, simple nude heels, subtle, elegant. No designer labels needed. The boutique hotel sat right on the water. White stucco walls, glass doors that gleamed like pride. Inside, it smelled like lemon water and ambition. Tables draped in white linen, vendor banners fluttering from the AC vents. Music humming low, something jazzy, safe, forgettable. My table was by the entrance, Salt and Sage Home, featuring the Soft Power Fall Collection. Cinnamon clove, smoked vanilla, white pumpkin soy candles wrapped in brown craft paper and tied with twine bows. My hands were still smoothing the table runner when I heard it. Damn, you really leveled up, huh? That voice, low, familiar, smug. I didn't have to turn around. My body remembered before my eyes did. Trey. He stood across from my table in a wrinkled navy blazer that didn't fit like it used to. Loafers scuffed at the toes, hairline pushed back like the past itself was retreating. And around his neck, the same gold chain I'd bought him for our 3rd anniversary, dulled now, catching light like it was tired of shining. He picked up one of my candles, sniffed, and smirked. Still doing the candle thing? Still. That word stung once, but not anymore. It slid off me like wax off glass. I smiled. Doing it well, thank you. He scratched his neck, pretending to look impressed, but his eyes darted everywhere except mine. You know, he said, I've been thinking of pivoting, coaching, branding, helping people with their business models, maybe even joint ventures. He grinned. We used to be good at that, right? I said nothing, just kept aligning product cards. He kept talking. They always do. Look, I know things didn't end great, but that's water under the bridge. I'm in a different headspace now. He leaned in a little. And honestly, I always respected your hustle. You always took stuff too personal, He laughed, loud enough for the table next to us to glance over. I used to say you were bitter, he said. Maybe you were just early. That part almost made me laugh, too. Early, like I'd been the prototype for his downfall. I didn't respond, just slid a product card across the table, neat, professional, no emotion attached. We're always accepting bulk orders for the holidays, I said, Feel free to reach out through the proper channels." He blinked, thrown off by the formality. "Come on, Monique. You don't gotta be like that." He chuckled, trying to recover. "You really still mad?" There it was again. Still. Like my peace was petty. Like my discipline was some drawn-out tantrum. I took a slow breath and leaned in just enough for him to hear me over the soft jazz. "I'm not mad," I said quietly. "You called me bitter. But bitterness didn't buy you this booth. Bitterness didn't build this business. Peace did. Structure did. Discipline did." I let it hang there a second. Watched his jaw twitch. Then I added, "You didn't break me, Trey. You just made room for the version of me you were too small to handle." Then I smiled. Soft, polite, controlled. The kind of smile that photographs well. He swallowed, looked down at the display again, like he was trying to figure out where he fit in this new world. Then he turned and walked off, slipping a sample candle into his coat pocket like it owed him something. That night, I drove home under a purple sky that looked too peaceful for memories like his. The ocean roared low in the distance as I pulled into my driveway. Inside, I kicked off my heels, loosened my blouse, and lit one of the smoked vanilla candles. The flame caught with a soft hiss, filling the room with warmth that felt earned. I sat on the back patio, listening to the waves roll in, the wind brushing my skin like forgiveness. Then my phone buzzed, a DM. "Trey W., your booth was nice. Proud of you, Far. Might hit you up about candles for an event." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I set the phone face down, left it on red, because growth doesn't always need a reply. 3 weeks passed like nothing happened. Orders poured in. My Shopify dashboard glowed like Christmas lights. Target's corporate office reached out about a potential seasonal line collaboration. And a local Black-owned business collective featured me in their holiday catalog under the headline, "Women Who Built Peace from Scratch." I wasn't chasing revenge. I was attracting reward. Then came the email. Subject, request for quote. Private label, scent line. The sender's name made me pause. Shalin R. Events. I almost laughed out loud. The same Shalin from his Vision. The woman who once called me jealous and basic on Facebook when I disappeared after the divorce. The one who thought Trey's luxury brand was her golden ticket. She wanted to launch her own candle line now, a luxury collection for high-end brides. Wanted my scents, my wax, my hands. Didn't even realize she was requesting peace from the same woman she once helped betray. I forwarded the email to my assistant, Deja, a sharp 20-something who ran my fulfillment like clockwork. I typed one line, quote them the premium rate. No discounts, full upfront payment, no label customization. Deja replied 2 minutes later with 3 laughing emojis and, "Yas, ma'am." I chuckled, shaking my head. That's the thing about peace. It doesn't need to scream. It just invoices full price. That winter, I hosted a vendor pop-up at my beach house. Small, intimate, candlelight everywhere. The living room smelled like mulled cider and pine. Fireplace crackling, jazz humming soft from the patio speakers. People moving through the space like they were gliding. I'd transformed my home into a warm, glowing sanctuary. The walls breathed peace. The floors whispered gratitude. Women came from all over, entrepreneurs, creators, dreamers, carrying tote bags, sipping cider, laughing easy. When the last guest was leaving, she paused by the door, candle bag in hand, and said, "You're so calm. How do you stay so unbothered?" I laughed, low and steady. "Because I know where I've been," I said. "And I know what I'm never going back to." She nodded, eyes soft, and hugged me tight before stepping into the night. When the door clicked shut, I stood there for a moment, listening to the quiet. No tension, no ghosts, just waves in the distance and the faint crackle of wax melting down to its base. I looked around at the flickering candles, the light I built, the calm I earned, and whispered to the empty room, "Still bitter, huh?" Then I smiled and blew out the candle. It was the Monday before Thanksgiving when the magazine cover hit the stands. Gulf and Grace magazine, 12 women reshaping the southern coastline. There I was, third from the top, sitting on the steps of my beach bungalow with a steaming mug of tea, barefoot, smiling like I'd finally made peace with every version of myself that had ever tried to survive me. The subtitle read, Monique Whitfield, From Burnout to Brand Powerhouse, the sage behind the flame. When I first saw it at the grocery store checkout, I thought it was somebody else. I picked up the glossy issue, saw my name in bold serif font, and for a split second, my brain refused to believe it. I hadn't even known they were putting me on the cover. They'd done the interview weeks before. A bright-eyed young woman named Lacey, maybe late 20s, curls like a halo, and a recorder that never left her hand. She drove all the way down from Atlanta, nervous but excited. She said she'd been following Salt and Sage home since my Return to Self line blew up online. We sat at my dining table, sunlight pouring in through the sheer curtains, the sound of waves rolling and soft and rhythmic, like background music to healing. She placed her phone between us and smiled. "Just talk like you're telling a story to an old friend," she said. So I did. I talked about betrayal, rebuilding, and how sometimes peace costs your favorite version of yourself. I told her about the nights I cried into candle jars, about wax spills and invoices, and the sacred silence that followed letting go. She asked, "What would you do differently?" I sipped my tea and said, "Nothing. Everything happened right on time. I just had to stop showing up late to my own peace." She froze, pen hovering in midair. Then she whispered, "That's going in the article." We both laughed. The morning the issue dropped, my phone lit up like Christmas. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years, former coworkers, old clients, even my high school homeroom teacher, Mrs. Fletcher, bless her heart, left a voice message saying, "Knew you had that shine, baby. Always did." But the one notification that made me pause? A text from a name I hadn't seen in 5 years. "Trey, don't answer." It said, "You on a whole cover now. Real proud of you, Mo. Real proud. Not we, not us. Just you." I stared at that message, thumb hovering over the screen. It was polite, measured, harmless on the surface. But the quiet between those words carried years of arrogance dressed up as nostalgia. I pressed and held, delete. It's funny how the past tries to sneak back dressed like a compliment. They think pride erases the damage. They think acknowledgement rewrites the history. They think their sudden proud of you untangles the knots they tied. But I knew better. Pride without repentance is just ego on vacation. That same week, my assistant Deja called from the office while I was testing new winter scents, bergamot, oak moss, and soft amber melting together in a pot. "Monique," she said, voice tight with that "you better sit down" tone, "you might want to see this." She forwarded a link, YouTube, title, "My Rise, My Fall, My Next Chapter, Trey Washington Speaks." Length, 12 minutes. Views, 319. I exhaled. Couldn't even roll my eyes all the way before I clicked play. The video opened on a beige wall in bad lighting. Trey sat in a hoodie that looked one wash away from giving up, with a smirk that didn't fit his face anymore. He started talking about being misunderstood, about how he lost everything and found himself through humility. He threw in lines like, "Real ones know," and "haters gonna hate." The kind of cheap philosophy that sounds deep until you remember who's saying it. And then, 3 minutes in, he dropped it. There was someone in my life long time ago, helped me build, pushed me forward. I didn't appreciate her then. She's doing big things now. No hard feelings, though. She was always a little too passionate. But that passion got her where she is, I guess. Props. Props. Like I was a prop. I closed the tab before the video finished buffering, because men like that don't apologize. They perform regret like it's a TED Talk, short, digestible, brand-safe remorse, and I wasn't his audience anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of waves and my phone buzzing nonstop again. A reporter from Local Leaders Monthly had seen the Gulf and Grace article and wanted to feature me in a piece about women turning personal loss into enterprise. I said yes, but only if we filmed it at my house. I wanted the camera to see what peace looked like after the fire. The crew came that Saturday. 2 cameras, 1 ring light, 1 sound guy with a man bun. I set the mood myself, candles lit across the counter, the ocean visible through the sliding glass doors, a breeze curling through sheer curtains. The interviewer was kind, thoughtful. She leaned forward, voice soft. "What would you say to women watching this?" she asked. "Who feels stuck? Who feels small?" I looked straight into that lens and said, "You're not stuck. You're sacred, and sacred things take time to reveal their power." The cameraman blinked. The interviewer's eyes welled. And in that moment, I knew I hadn't just survived. I'd arrived. The interview went small-scale viral, not millions of views, but enough to matter. Women from Mobile, from Baton Rouge, from Savannah, they started writing me. One message said, "I left my husband of 19 years after watching your story. I forgot I was allowed to want more." Another, "I play your video every morning while I pack orders for my hair oil business. Thank you for reminding me that slow doesn't mean weak." I read every one, sometimes twice, sometimes through tears. Those messages were my new currency, not dollars, not recognition, just proof that what tried to break me had become somebody else's blueprint. Then came Thanksgiving. Aunt Denise came early to help with the cooking. Robe tied tight, slippers shuffling across the tile while she hummed "Blessed Assurance." Deja arrived with arms full of flowers and a new playlist she'd made called Gratitude Season. We set the table for 8. Cornbread dressing, cranberry glaze, mac and cheese bubbling over with that perfect corner crust, and Deja's mama's honey ham, the kind so sweet it could make a preacher slip and cuss under his breath. The air smelled like butter, cinnamon, and laughter. We ate, we passed plates, we clinked glasses. And just when I leaned back, full and content, 3 soft knocks echoed from the front door. I opened it, and there he was. Trey, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes low, hoodie again. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said fast. I was driving by. Thought maybe I'd drop this off." He held out a package wrapped in plain brown paper. No ribbon, no label. I hesitated, then took it. Inside was one of my own candles, salt and sage. The original scent, the first one I ever poured, only now it was burned all the way down. Wick gone, wax melted to glass, cleaned out like memory. He said, "I kept it, even after everything. It reminded me of what real care looked like." For a second I studied his face. Thinner, older, heavy around the eyes. Regret sat on him like a coat he didn't know how to take off. I nodded once. Not out of forgiveness, out of finality. He glanced past me into the house. Saw the full table, the laughter, the glow. His gaze lingered on the joy like it was something he couldn't afford anymore. "I see you built something real," he said quietly, "bigger than me." I smiled. "No," I said. "Just better." And then I closed the door. Later that night, I stood by the window with a mug of hot cider. The moon hung low over the ocean, painting the water silver. The waves were steady, confident, the way peace sounds when it finally stops apologizing. Deja padded over, hair wrapped, still laughing from the kitchen, and handed me another mug. "You still think he's the storm, huh?" she said. I chuckled, slow and deep. "No, baby," I said. "He's the tide. Comes and goes, but I'm the shore. I stay." She raised her mug. "To staying." "To staying," I echoed. And we toasted to that, to stillness, to strength, to the kind of peace that doesn't flinch when the past comes knocking. Outside, the waves kept their rhythm. Inside, my candles burned low, one by one, filling the room with sage, sea salt, and the quiet kind of victory. The following Thanksgiving, the house smelled like sage, sweet potatoes, and quiet. That good kind of quiet. Not the kind that aches, the kind that hums, the kind that tells you, without words, you made it through. I had the oven going since 7 a.m., the windows fogged from the heat, steam curling up like incense to something divine. The ocean wind sneaked through the screen door, tugging at the edges of a dish towel, carrying the faint scent of salt and seaweed through the air. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen, soft and golden, catching the copper pots on the wall, the glass jars lined in rows, the framed newspaper clippings and magazine spreads that told my story better than I ever could. There was a pie cooling on the counter, sweet potato made from scratch, crust hand-rolled, edges pinched just like Aunt Denise taught me, a small dollop of cinnamon butter folded into the dough before baking. Her trick, the one she swore could fix any day that tried to break you. That same auntie, the one who let me crash in her guest room when my world collapsed, was outside now, laughing with Deja. They were stringing fairy lights between the palm trees, the same ones we'd hung every year since the first salt and sage dinner. It had become tradition, the vendor Thanksgiving, a table for all the women who helped this brand bloom, not investors, not board members, but women who built things with tired hands and fierce hearts, candle makers, label designers, soap artisans, shipping queens, mothers who packed boxes between school pickups, women who turned survival into style and called it business. That backyard was sacred ground, not a boardroom, but a garden of resurrection. And me? I was the anchor now. Funny thing is, I never planned to be this version of myself. I didn't dream of leadership, didn't write CEO in any vision board. I just wanted peace. One room, one sink, one quiet place to think again. But peace has a habit of expanding once you let it breathe. Give a woman peace and she'll build a brand around it. Give her silence and she'll find the melody inside it. I used to think revenge was fire, but peace is water. It cleans, it moves, it finds its way into every crack until nothing toxic can hold. That morning, while I basted the turkey and sipped my chamomile tea, my phone rang. Gulf and Grace magazine, the same one that had crowned me the sage behind the flame. Monique, the editor said, her voice bright and professional but touched with something softer, we're nominating you for Woman of the Year. I froze mid-step. Excuse me? She laughed. Yes, ma'am. The gala's in Charleston, black tie. We'd love to feature your story in the year-end issue. Full spread. I had to sit down, right there at the kitchen table, still holding the wooden spoon, not because I didn't believe it, but because I finally did. 5 years ago, I was a woman trying to keep the lights on with a dream made of wax and willpower. Now I was being recognized for it. When she finished explaining the details, I said yes, thanked her, and hung up. Then I sat still, hands flat on the table, tea gone cold, heart full enough to spill. That was the exact moment it clicked. I wasn't bitter. I was brilliant. The day passed like a slow song. Friends arrived carrying dishes and hugs. The backyard filled with chatter and soul music. Fairy lights flickered on as the sun went down, wrapping everything in a soft amber glow. Then my little goddaughter, Maya, came running in from the porch, curls flying wild, glitter dusting her cheeks like stardust. Auntie Mo, somebody left you a package on the porch. She held it out like treasure. Brown paper, twine-tied sloppy, no return address. I smiled, wiping my hands, and opened it. Inside, a candle, but not one of mine. It looked almost right. Glass jar, black matte label. But the wax color was wrong. Scent too harsh, too synthetic. The wick crooked. I tilted it. The name printed across the front read, Coastal Flame by Trey Washington. There it was, a counterfeit piece, I could have rolled my eyes, called Deja, laughed loud, made a joke out of it, but instead I just stared at it, that little imitation of my light, and felt a strange stillness, not anger, just amusement. Men like Trey always find a way to repackage what they stole. He thought he was mirroring me, but he didn't understand. It wasn't the candle that changed my life. It was the fire I built around it. I carried the jar out to the patio where the fire pit waited. The night had started cooling, the sky smeared in purple and gold. Aunt Denise was laughing inside with the others, music low and familiar. I struck a match. The flame caught, hissed, then curled into itself. I dropped the fake candle into the fire and watched it melt, slow, uneven, messy. The glass cracked before the wax collapsed until there was nothing left but a warped label curling into smoke, and I whispered, "Goodbye, coastal flame." Hours later, after the dinner, after the laughter and music and the clatter of plates stacked high with joy, I slipped away from the noise. The moon was heavy over the water, the sand cool under my feet. The tide stretched itself in lazy rhythm, kissing the shore and pulling back again. I wrapped my sweater tighter and walked until the house lights looked small behind me. The air smelled like salt and sage, the same scent that started everything. And there, with the ocean stretching wide and endless, I thought about how far I'd come. From the woman who cried in silence, to the woman who spoke in scent and light, from the one who let betrayal define her, to the one who made peace her business card, from the woman who was told she was bitter, to the woman who owned a beachfront home, with her name on the deed, her story in print, and a life that glowed without apology. I didn't get here by clapping back. I didn't get here by out-talking the lies. I got here by choosing silence over spectacle, structure over chaos, stillness over storms, because peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the confidence that you'll be fine even when it returns. Trey will always find ways to reappear. In text messages, in recycled ideas, in stories he tells himself to sleep at night. But that's his loop, not mine. Me? I've moved on. I've moved in. Every morning I walk through this house, I whisper a thank you to the version of me who refused to fold, the one who left quietly and built loudly. That woman built an altar out of her pain and called it purpose. That woman chose peace, and peace paid her back with interest. The waves lapped at my feet, cool and steady like a benediction. Behind me, the house glowed warm. Fairy lights, laughter, the scent of cinnamon and clove floating on the air. I smiled, whispered to the wind, "We're good now," then turned back toward home, barefoot, peaceful, and free. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.